Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. I bet you missed Brian T's Chicago Med Season 10 return. The cast of Chicago Med has changed a lot throughout its 10 seasons, and although some actors leave, many eventually return, including Brian T. T starred as Dr. Ethan Choi in the first 8 seasons of the One Chicago TV show, making him one of the medical drama's original cast members. When Chicago Med began, Ethan was a resident in Gaffney Chicago Medical Center's emergency department. Eventually, he got promoted to chief resident, then became attending emergency medicine doctor, and finally, the character ended his time on the series as the chief of emergency medicine. Sadly, T's Ethan exited Chicago Med towards the beginning of season 8. Ethan and April Sexton got married, and promptly after the couple's nuptials, he decided to leave Gaffney to open and run a mobile clinic, DOCS on Wheels, with his new wife. They wanted to help underserved communities in Chicago. Since then, fans haven't seen Ethan, or April for that matter, in the NBC medical drama series. However, T worked on Chicago Med in season 10, episode 14, and many viewers likely missed his sneaky return. Brian T's Dr. Ethan Choi is nowhere to be found on screen in Chicago Med season 10, episode 14, but the hour still served as the actor's return to the show. It just happened behind the camera instead of in front of it. T directed Acid Test, which featured a surprise inspection at the hospital, Luke Mitchell's Dr. Mitch Ripley reeling in the wake of his suspension, and Steven Weber's Dr. Dean Archer accidentally getting high on acid after treating a patient who is also high on acid. All the while, T was the one directing every scene. T made a post on his Instagram page dedicated to his time directing Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 14. He shared it hours before the premiere of Acid Test, writing in the caption, "Always a good time playing with my friends again. Hope you enjoy #Tonai Chites episode of #ChicagoMed as much as I enjoyed directing it." The 3 pictures in the post feature T working behind the scenes of the Chicago Med episode, including one photo with Weber on the set. Acid Test wasn't the first time Brian T directed an episode of Chicago Med. In actuality, the former star's directorial debut, in general and on the NBC TV show, came back in season 8, just 8 episodes after Dr. Ethan Choi married April Sexton, and the two left Gaffney for good. After his first directed episode of Chicago Med aired, T talked about the experience with NBC Insider. He explained, "It's been something that I've been aspiring to do for, what I would say, since the start of Chicago Med." 1 season later, T helmed his second episode of the One Chicago TV series. T returned to direct Chicago Med Season 9, Episode 11, "I Think There Is Something You're Not Telling Me." Then he came back to the set of the NBC medical drama a third time to direct Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 14, Acid Test. Following his exit as Ethan in the show, T has been directing 1 episode per season, suggesting he will return again when NBC renews Chicago Med for Season 11. Brian T has only returned to Chicago Med to direct episodes since his exit, but that doesn't mean that fans won't see his character, Dr. Ethan Choi, again. As mentioned above, Ethan left the medical drama to launch a mobile clinic with his wife in the city. Since he's not dead and is still living in Chicago, T reprising his role as Ethan in the TV series is quite plausible. Given the circumstances, the Chicago Med writers and producers could easily devise a way for Ethan to make a 1-episode appearance in the future. If you blinked, you might have missed it, but Brian T returned to Chicago Med in Season 10, and it was nothing short of a homecoming for longtime fans of the series. Dr. Ethan Choi, the former ED chief and fan-favorite character, made his much-anticipated return, bringing with him a mix of nostalgia, unresolved emotions, and a reminder of why Chicago Med was never quite the same after he left. When Brian T exited Chicago Med in Season 8, it left a noticeable void. Ethan Choi had been through it all: life-threatening injuries, heartbreak, leadership struggles, and a long journey toward personal healing. His farewell was bittersweet as he left the hospital to embark on a new chapter with April Sexton, his longtime love interest. While their departure was a fitting conclusion to their tumultuous romance, fans always held out hope that Ethan would return, even if just for a moment. And return he did. But the question is, did you catch it? The moment wasn't heavily promoted, and the showrunners played it close to the chest. Instead of a grand announcement or a sweeping storyline, Ethan's reappearance was woven subtly into an emotionally charged episode that felt like a love letter to longtime viewers. His presence wasn't about medical heroics or a high-stakes crisis. It was about closure, reconnection, and reminding us why his character had such a profound impact on the series. Ethan's return came at a crucial time in the hospital's narrative. The ED was in turmoil, with leadership struggling to maintain order and the staff feeling the weight of mounting pressures. Enter Dr. Choi, calm, collected, and as unwavering as ever. His return wasn't to reclaim his old position, but rather to offer support, wisdom, and maybe, just maybe, a new direction for some of his former colleagues. One of the most touching moments was his reunion with Dr. Will Halstead. The two shared an unbreakable bond throughout the series, despite their vastly different approaches to medicine and authority. Ethan had always been the disciplined-by-the-book leader, while Will operated more on instinct, often clashing with hospital bureaucracy. Their conversation was brief but meaningful, a subtle acknowledgement of their past and how far they had come. It wasn't overly sentimental, but the unspoken understanding between them spoke volumes. Of course, April's name wasn't left out of the conversation. Fans had been eager to know how Ethan and April were faring post-Chicago Med, and the episode didn't disappoint. In a heartwarming moment, Ethan revealed that their new life together had been everything they hoped for, filled with purpose, love, and a newfound appreciation for the simplicity of everyday moments. It was a rare instance where Chicago Med gave fans a true happily ever after, without last-minute heartbreak. But Ethan's return wasn't just about looking back, it also served as a potential setup for the future. With familiar faces leaving and new dynamics forming, Chicago Med is at a crossroads. Ethan's brief return felt like a reminder that his story may not be entirely over. Whether this was a one-time appearance or a hint at something more remains to be seen, but the door is certainly open. One of the best aspects of Brian T's portrayal of Ethan Choi has always been his ability to bring quiet strength to a chaotic environment. While Chicago Med thrives on dramatic medical cases and high-stakes action, Ethan's character always provided a sense of stability. His return, however brief, was a reminder of what the show was missing, a grounded presence that balanced out the chaos. For longtime fans, the episode was a masterclass in emotional storytelling. It wasn't about shocking plot twists or dramatic goodbyes. It was about celebrating a character's journey and the legacy he left behind. While the show must go on, Ethan Choi's impact will never be forgotten, and if his return proved anything, it's that Brian T's presence in Chicago Med is irreplaceable. So if you missed his return, don't worry, you're not alone. But rest assured, it was a moment worth watching, even if only to remind us why Dr. Ethan Choi remains one of Chicago Med's most beloved characters. Here's hoping this isn't the last time we see him walk through those hospital doors.